Hello, this is for CLUNEY magazine. This is Henry CLUNEY sat here with me now at Stiff Little Fingers, and we're just going to have a quick chat and find out more about the guy.
Oh dear.
Oh dear. So if you can just give us a quick recall on how you originally got into music.
Originally?
Yeah.
Funny enough, met Jake Burns at school the first day of the term of 1970.
Yeah.
And he had a guitar, and I'd never thought about playing guitar, but went to his house at lunchtime and, you know, blah blah blah. Yeah. As you do, listen to records. And I thought, I want to get one of those. This would have been September. And I got a guitar for Christmas. And the funny thing is, my dad said to me, I'll only get you this if you learn how to play it. Now it's 2011 and I'm still trying, you know, but that was it. And I always loved music, but never in my life thought of playing it. And then Jake and me, as we became friends.
Were you at school?
Yes, we were at school together. And we then would sit down in his house and play and blah blah blah. Learn the most ridiculous songs. You're talking about Neil Diamond songs,
okay, yeah.
But they're easy to play, you know, you don't...
But this will be sort of 76, 77?
74.
74.
Long time ago. Christmas 74, and then we were in various school bands that were just for fun. I mean, I don't think we ever played. No, we never played a gig. We used to just make names up. There was the BC band, which was Burns CLUNEY, like, and that was, you know, oh, great name.
Yeah.
And that was it. I mean, after that, we went on to form Highway Star. Now, Highway Star was Bran Falloon, who was the first drummer in SLF. Bran and Jake were in the same class. And then what happened in that year was his class and my class got like amalgamated into one. Okay. So that's when I met them. And Bran was the drummer, and we formed Highway Star, which was a really bad, well, it was a rock band. Obviously with a name like Highway Star, I mean, we did Freebird.
Excellent choice, yeah.
CZ Top stuff, and I mean, it was fun.
Yeah.
And we actually did, for Belfast, we did okay. We did quite a few gigs. That would have been 76. I mean, when we were doing, like I say, Rory Gallagher and stuff like that. And I remember then hearing New Rose by the Damned and stuff like that. Yeah. And I remember thinking, this is just so much better than what we were playing. Yeah. And it really hit me like that. And I know that's not cliche, I heard punk and all, but that's what happened. We were doing a gig in a place in the centre of Belfast. It doesn't really matter, a place called Mooney's, and we had an amp sitting up, and I was playing this stuff, and I'm thinking, I really hate this. So I sat on the amp and played the set, sitting down, you know, and I'm trying to get Jake to put in some of this stuff. Eddie and Hot Rods, the Damned. I mean, there wasn't a lot around, but Eddie and Hot Rods live at the Marquee and stuff. And of course, Jake was like, I'm not playing that, no. So they threw me out of the band. That should have been a warning. But so what happened was I kept saying that this you have to listen to this because this music's really good. And Jake wouldn't listen to it. And by this stage, you're talking probably 6 months later, so I think the first Damned album, the first Clash one was definitely out. So I would be bringing him the Clash album and saying, listen to this, keep listening to it. And all he ever said was, it's the biggest load of whatever I've ever heard. And that was hard because I wanted to play it and he didn't. He wanted to stick with the older stuff. And I managed to keep bringing it up. I used to go to Jake's house all the time, listen to music, so I would be bringing this stuff up. Listen to this. So I think I left it with him for a couple of days, and he eventually gave it a listen and didn't, you know, approach it with I already don't like this. And it really was, we decided then that this is what I want to play, and I managed to get him into the same frame of mind. Yeah. So that was basically the whole first part.
Right.
If that makes sense.
And that's when you decided that he's going to leave. I mean, obviously listened to some of the things that Jake said and stuff, and in the beginning, I always thought that Jake was very reluctant to actually call it a punk band.
He was.
It was more of a...
See, but in a way, not in a way, I can understand that, because one thing we never did was go down the Mohican route.
Right, yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it wasn't as planned as this sounds, but that's going to put you at a certain period that's really going to date you.
Yeah.
Because once that goes out, you look like you're from that time. And it wasn't our thing. I mean, it's spiky hair and all that, but not multicoloured Mohicans and things. And while I always thought it was, at the beginning, it was more a punk band than anything, it was also a rock band.
A lot of things was labelled as punk around the time.
Elvis Costello.
Elvis Costello, the Jam,
Exactly.
the Police, you know.
So, I mean, it was one of those things where would people say you're a punk band? We'd say, yeah, if you want.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like, do you want to call yourself that, or do you just want to let people make their own mind up? I mean, our first tour was supporting the Tom Robinson band.
Yeah.
They weren't a punk band. They were a classic ordinary rock band.
That's right, yeah.
I mean, you listen to them now, and there's no way you could say that's punk.
Yeah. But at the time...
Oh yeah, I mean, the audience was punk.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, while he might have been reluctant to say it, there was good reason. And that was the beginning of the whole thing.
And when you come over to England first time round, was it Eric's and places like that?
That was first. Well, I mean, the first gig we ever did was in a place in London called the Electric Ballroom.
Okay, yeah.
And it's the first time I'd ever played outside. Well, come on, and we're all like, you know, because only one guitar, we didn't have any money for anything. Counted out the first song, and I broke 2 strings in the first chorus. And it's like, so I had to say, we're going to have to take a break, and we'll right back and play anything yet.
Yeah.
But it was great, and the crowd.
And it was a big crowd.
Oh, it was.
It was, yeah.
The crowd loved it.
Yeah.
And then the next gig we did was at the Lyceum, but it was with, I think it was like 6 bands on the Human League who were with us.
Right.
But that was when they were more experimental,
That's right.
before the girls and things.
Yeah.
But one of the bands on, which band was it? I can't remember. But the guy, the drummer's playing, and we're just watching, blah, 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 blah. And the drummer gets up, runs around and pushes the guitar player off the stage. Now the stage is about 8 feet high.
Okay.
And there's all like scaffolding. Guy falls. There's just like silence, and he goes up to the mic and says, "Is there a doctor in the audience?" He broke the guy's neck. Oh. And we were thinking, is this what it's like
This
over
is
here?
yeah, welcome.
Yeah. Are we supposed to do this, you know, to each other?
Yeah, for sure.
But no, it was great, and the people really enjoyed it. And because we'd had a John Peel session going, a lot of them knew the music and had bought the first 2 singles and things. So it was really, we couldn't ask for it anymore.
Because John played it for
8
over a
nights,
week
I think.
every night. Yeah.
I mean,
which is unheard of.
it really was, and we used to sit. The first single we did, of course, we used to stick the sleeves together with our by hand, you know, put the records in. And while we were doing that, it's on the radio, so it was really good. And he really made it, of course.
And you did. I remember running home from the pub one night. You'd done a BBC play for today, and
that was bad.
Was that filmed at Eric's?
It was filmed in Eric.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be a club in Belfast.
Yeah,
But
that's.
what else was funny about it was, of course, you don't play, pretend you're banging away, and they got all these punk audience to come in to watch us, and you know, they're jumping about. But of course, they kept shouting out for us to play songs, and we were trying to explain to them, the amps aren't real.
Yeah,
you know?
it's not for real. It's
They're shouting white noise, and we're like, we can't play anything. But yeah, play for today. That was Jake's one and only acting appearance, and he hated it.
Really?
That's wooden. He'd say that.
Back in the day, it was very good. You know?
Oh, I watched it probably about 3 months ago, and it was like, no.
Definitely different.
It's not good.
So Stiff Little Fingers moved on pretty rapidly.
Went
The
really
first
quick.
album into the charts, unknown for an independent album to get in the charts.
We were on tour with 2 other bands from Rough Trade, Essential Logic, and the normal. Who was
The normal, yeah.
That was great.
The normal, yeah.
Well, and what the idea was that every night we would rotate who the headliner was.
Yeah.
But after about 3 gigs, it became obvious that, I mean, if we were on first, we'd play and everybody would go home. So it was like, look, this is silly.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not saying, we're talking to them saying, look, we're not saying we're blah, 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 but obviously they're here to see us. So they even said, look, well, we're playing to nobody. So we ended up headlining every night, which just made sense. But halfway through the tour, we were sitting outside of the club in Derby, and when the album chart came out, and was in number 14, which was like
incredible, absolutely incredible. Yeah.
And the gigs were, I mean, it was so, the gigs were stuffed to the doors. I mean, it was like people lying on people, you know, it was so, it was great, but it became big right in the middle of a small tour, if you know what I mean.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, you saw the first big tour would have been Nobody's There.
Nobody's Here would have been the big one, and that, that was really good. I really loved that tour. That would have been early 1980, I want to say.
That's right, yeah. I mean, I can remember some of the hardcore punks sort of took a dislike to Stiff Little Fingers then, because he was walking down the high streets and for the first time you'd had Stiff Little Fingers albums in the front of W.H. Smith's things, which
it takes away the underground thing of it, but it's hard to say. I mean, I can understand why people do that, but you also have to say, whose fault is it in that? Okay, people could say, oh, you sold out that. But if people want to buy the albums, what do we do to supply the demand?
It's a very English attitude. Love the underdog. This is success, we don't like you no more.
No. Yeah. NME were always famous for it. Build them up, not them down.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that the Nobody's Heroes album was a really good follow-on to Inflammable Material.
It was. A lot of people I know didn't like it because it was cleaner. And it moved on a bit. I actually can see that, because I think the difference is pretty big, but still got the same ideas.
Yeah.
But yeah. And that becomes a bit, you know, woe is me, but what else? What else do you?
And it reflected the troubles in Ireland. It was.
See, that was the thing. It wasn't. The one thing people don't remember about it, they'll say, well, that's your album where you talk about the troubles. There's 13 songs on it,
yeah.
5 of them are about Northern Ireland.
Right. Yeah.
The rest of them aren't.
But I think a lot of, especially people around my age at the time, they picked up on that, because you had the troubles in Northern Ireland, but at the same time, we lived in Thatcher's Britain. The alternatives for us was leave school, go on the dole, become a thief, or the army recruit, and move around the schools, recruiting, etc.
Yeah.
And 18 months later, now you know someone who's been killed in Northern Ireland.
Oh yeah.
You know, so it was this real over there, and I think a lot of people through the lyrics of the songs and stuff really picked up on that.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, he also had the other side where people didn't have a clue. I mean, we got banned from playing Bradford because of a song called White Noise.
Yeah.
The guy said it was racist, and we were
That's
like,
right, yeah.
what?
Yeah. That's an inability to listen.
Yeah, it's like you hear probably the guy approached, okay, here's a song called White Noise, and it mentions black people and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And he immediately decides that's what it's about.
Right. Yeah, yeah. And the negative thing towards punks in general.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, if you can find any reason to do that, go ahead. That's what they'll do.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was a great time. That and the Nobody's Heroes tour. Even Go For It, to me, that was, when I play now, it's only those 3 albums, because I think after that, it's not really Stiff Little Fingers to me.
Yeah.
Those first 3 albums were really good, really what I think Stiff Little Fingers was.
And that was a turning point for lots of people as well, the Northern album.
Now then, I can see why. It was too... I think what had happened was we decided, let's try something a bit different. And I remember Jake and me sitting and we were saying, look, listening to the songs, and I'm not blaming this on anybody, because I'm as much to blame myself. I mean, I wrote Big City Nights, and it's like, you know, I mean, it's not Stiff Little Fingers in the slightest, but we're saying, look, what's going to happen? And it lost us a lot of fans, really did. But the other problem was, usually if you do that and you stick with it, you can find yourself going like this, and then the new groups,
That's right.
and then you, but it was at that stage Jake decided to stop. the band. So we didn't actually get a chance to do what
There was
could have been the other side.
There was a swinging musical taste.
Oh, yeah.
Oh
Oh, yeah.
New romantics.
And that was
all
just
sorts.
so out of step with what we were doing.
Yeah.
Um,
Sure, yeah.
That's when Jake decided for the first time to split up the band. And looking back now, he's probably right, but at the time you don't think that.
No.
You think, you know, we didn't give this new stuff a good enough chance. But if I look back on it now, I could say that that's not stuff of fingers. It's too different. It's too different. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And that it's not a step forward. It's a total jump.
It's a leap.
It is.
Lyrical wise, and the messages were very strong. And,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And you can't keep singing about the same thing time and time.
And it had some good songs. That's.
Yeah.
But I think what we did was we cared a lot more about what it sounded like and how everything was played. And where the first three albums were more like play the way we play on a stage.
Yeah.
This one wasn't. This one was more like, okay, let's put the piano on it and do this. And it's like, we never did that before.
Turned into a job.
Oh,
Yeah.
really was turn up the studio and be like, oh, we need this harmony part. It's like, we did inflammable material from setting up the first drum to walking out of the studio in like 12 days.
Yeah.
And this one was taking like 2 blocks of 2 weeks in the top studio, and it was like, what are we doing?
Just a nightmare.
Terrible.
Then the fingers split then.
Mm-hmm.
You, I believe, so the story goes, guitar lessons.
Yes. I did that back home, formed a couple of bands. Gordy, the guy strumming with me tonight, we formed a band together back in '87 and doing things like that. But nothing, Jake was basically, I didn't know because we weren't speaking, not for any bad reason, we wouldn't have to talk about. And I was living in Belfast, he was living in London. And in '87 he called me and he said, I hadn't spoken to him probably in a year, and he called me and he said, I'm on the dole. I said, all right.
Been there.
And he said, what are you doing? I said, oh, anything I can. And he basically told me that him and Ali had gone out to see, he said, the Tom Robinson band, who had done a reformation and done a couple of gigs in the Mean Fiddler in London. And they got talking. I said, blah, blah, blah. So the idea was, well, this would have been September, October '87. To get back together, play a few gigs, get some money for Christmas.
Yeah.
Have a bit of fun with it.
And this is Dolphins Taylor.
The Dolphins joined us then. And it was really, really good, really fun. And we couldn't believe the size of the crowds coming to see us.
Yeah.
I mean, we were talking about playing clubs. Small clubs, we had maybe get played at 200 or whatever. And there'd be 1,000 people asking for tickets.
Yeah.
And, the way we looked at it is very few people get a second chance at it.
Mm-hmm.
And we did.
Yeah.
And then when we'd sit down and think of it, why is this happening? You had to look around in 1887 and go, who's doing what? I mean, it's hard to say what great music, there was bound to be.
But there wasn't at the time, was there?
I don't know.
I think myself personally, I know myself certainly, couldn't put up with the new romantic, clean, banker-ish type of thing. And a lot of working class people had washed over them pretty quick.
Oh, why?
So, taste of the past and coming on, brilliant.
And what we found funny, there's people like your son would be there, you'd get the people that were obviously there at the beginning, and then there'd be the new, younger group. Mm-hmm. And it used to be, we always used to say it, that you'd see people as they got older moving back in the crowd. They'd be the ones at the front, and then you'd see the ones at the back,
Yeah.
It's
shining.
Yes, yeah. But it was great. And those first few years when we decided to make an album, that was a great time. The gigs were unbelievably good.
And that was Go For It.
No. It was Flags and Emblems. Go For It was 1981.
Yes. Yeah, it was Flags and Emblems, sorry. Yeah.
And that Flags and Emblems
was the worst album you made.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't good. It wasn't good. It was totally clean, nice, overproduced.
Yeah, that's the feeling I
had a few songs on it where it could have been better, but by that stage, there's no way that was still Little Fingers. I mean, it was way further even than now. there were some songs on it, had we had done them in the same way we'd done the first or second album, made it work.
It's funny you say that, because that's, for me personally, that's when an album become a fucking good album.
Because of that one.
Yeah.
And I would agree with that. I look at that now and go, that's not good.
Yeah.
That is not good. And that was more or less to me just to prove that, look, like it or not, and this is where Jake and me will probably even argue now if I was to speak to him, people wanted the old stuff. People weren't interested. And to this day, anybody that goes to see the band come that's off stiff little fingers now is going to jump about the alternative all-star and blah 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 blah. Not the new stuff.
Well, the difference in the Go For It album was when Suspect Device come out, he was queuing up outside the record shop, waiting for the Saturday morning to come for the sing, hoping that you'd be one of them who got hold of it. And Go For It was released, and at the time, Boots.
You're talking about. Are you talking about Flags and Elves?
Flags and Elves was released. Sorry, and at the time, Boots sold records, and it was released into the easy listening section in Boots. You know, and I thought,
easy listening.
There's something gone wrong here.
Absolutely brilliant. I didn't know that.
For sure.
That is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just, you know, I think we could have done it. We could have done an album had we have had the same feeling that we had before, but it was obvious that it was becoming more of a, hey, here's one you might remember, or, you know, that sort of thing. Which, you know, Jake, I've said this in papers since, it still is. People go to see Stiff Fingers now, not because of a new album they put in. People go because of the first few albums.
Yeah.
And even me doing this tour myself, and I just play music from the first 3 albums. I've got an album of my own now too, but I did it, and obviously I'm biased, but I did it the way we did it for album material, where you bash your thing out and it's not nice and cleaned up and it's just, I miss that. I miss that stuff at Fingers when we were doing Flags and Emblems, and when we were doing things like triggering drum samples and things. I mean, we used to set the drum kit up and play it, and we didn't even know if the drum kit was in tune with it. You know, the heads and things. Playing, blah, blah, blah. That's great. But now it's like you're hitting it, you're sampling it through a thing, and it's like, what is this? I mean, and I mean, it never sold. But what made me laugh was, I think about maybe 5 or 6 years ago, one of the Q magazine or something, I got hold of it, and it said, I know what it was, they'd released the first 3 albums and just reissued them on EMI or something, and the guy said, Stiff Fingers says the first 3 albums are unbelievable, said, this is really punk music, and then I said, unfortunately they got back together and released a string of dire music, and I thought, says it all,
there we go.
Does what it says on the tin, you know. So, there's no defence for it. I'm not blaming this on Jake, right? Because I was part of it.
But it's occasionally good to drop a ballad, because then the next album
but
sounds better.
Does it? You see, the next album's then where I had my story is we had the songs for the album. I think it became Get a Life. It was called.
That's right. Yeah.
And we rehearsed it. This would have been '94. Rehearsed it, got all the things, and went to a studio. Again, was so unstiff of Fingers. It was a live-in studio, you know, with like rooms upstairs. So we went, and unlike the earlier albums, we didn't set up in the studio and play the music. We did that for like one day, and all we kept were the drums. And then the next day, Ali would come in by himself, and there was no feel, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was my day, and or a couple of days, I came in and did my tracks, and blah blah blah, just worked through all the stuff. Great. And it was like, okay, then Jake's got to come in and do his, and then we'll need the vocals done, whatever. So I went home to Belfast after doing all my stuff, and I hadn't heard anything for 2 weeks. And I thought, surely there's some movement now, because this is a long time to have that. And the manager called me and said, I don't know how to tell you this. He just said, but they don't want you to come back. Now, apart from the fact it really hit me, it was like, I grew up with Jake Burns. We grew up together, we went to school together, and he had some guy that we've known for a couple of years call me up to tell me. And I thought, what? And I tried to call him, didn't speak to me. His wife said he was in the bath. You know, and that was just a long bath. Oh, it was, it really got me, and I thought, for a while, I just thought, I mean, the papers back home were interviewing him, and I was saying the nastiest things about him I could think of, because I still do think that is a low way to do anything. No matter whether you think you're right, no matter whether your reasons are right or whatever, that's not the way to do it with somebody you grew up started with.
It's the equivalent of a text, isn't it?
It is. It's breaking up with your wife on a text to your girlfriend. And then I read this interview in the paper saying, well, you know, the new album, just when the new album's coming out, well, you know, we'd like to thank Henry for being there for blah, blah, blah years, and we're sorry things didn't work out, but we hope whatever he moves on to. Basically, people started asking me, why did you leave? And people asked me that up to last week. Why did you leave? And it's like, I didn't leave anything. I said that they told me not to come back. The thing that really got me was that they led people to believe that I decided I didn't want to do it anymore, so I left. I remember Jake saying in the paper, well, the music he wants to play and the music we want to play is so different.
Just the story that went wrong.
And this is something I've never said before, because is that had Jake had the guts to do it, those albums since then should have been the Jake Burns band. That's the music he likes, and fair play to him. That's no problem. That's his style of music. That's the music he wanted to write. But don't be putting the name Stiff Little Fingers on it.
Yeah, it's his slightly different, isn't it?
Oh, it's not. It's.
But Jake did a few things on his own. He did the big wheel attempt,
yes,
which was terrible.
Well, and the big wheel to me is almost like the stuff he's been doing.
Yeah, it's got a soul
connection to it. Yeah.
And then he did the Three Men in Black. Which unfortunately I never got to see. And he even played in my own town. I found out queuing up outside another club the next day. I sees the poster, like, you know. But, I have heard a bit of the stuff, and you can clock a bit on YouTube, etc. And it is very, very good. Far better than a lot of the stuff that has come and gone since, you know. But there's no plans to sort of keep that sort of thing going or anything.
No. Now I haven't spoken to Jake. I haven't seen Jake Burns since 1994, and I suppose the thing to say is how I started doing this, but
for sure,
that will move it on better. Is that I was sitting at home and I got a phone call from the guy that is the agent for the Damned, and he said to me, "Would you ever think of going out as a solo thing, doing some of your SOS stuff, putting some stuff together?" And I said, wouldn't be interested. And he said, you need to think about it. He said, I was thinking of putting you on with Damned. And I thought,
and what sort of year is this?
Oh, this would have been end of 2008, start of 2009. And I said, wow. And he called me, he said, think about it. And I think he called me back 3 months later and said, look, I think people would enjoy it. And the Damned are going out on tour in June, so it was the Damned and the Alarm, and he said, I would love to put you on. And I said, well, let me see. And I sat and worked out the stuff, and I thought, I don't want to go up there and just do, you know, here's whatever song it is and play through it exactly the way it was. And I thought, but how do you do it different? And he said, he had talked about a solo acoustic tour. And I knew Jake had done that acoustic stuff, and I thought, now, the way I want to do it won't sound right on an acoustic, because I just can't put into it what I want to put into it. So, I mean, the bit you heard in the soundtrack, I got this guitar and had it butchered so that I can play the electric and play both at the same time. And when we went on the Damned tour, first gig we ever did, people were going mental, and I thought, you know, that's just so nice.
Yeah, yeah. A good mix, actually. The Down Down the Alarm is a good mix.
It was a good
tour,
tour,
yeah.
and then doing that whole thing, I think it was about 9 gigs, but the people just loved it, and the idea was, okay, we'll keep this going. The only problem was that the agent for the Dam was in the middle of setting up a solo tour for me, and then something happened and he got sidetracked. Doesn't matter. I don't even know. But I got another agent, and he booked he booked a tour, my first solo tour for last December in Britain, which was not a good time to go on tour.
Yeah, words went without the 30 years.
And I'm in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember playing here in New York, and it was like, we do it. Gordy was driving. I mean, we were driving through snow and digging the car out every day, and it was like nobody would show up, and I don't blame them. I wouldn't show up if I didn't have to. But what makes something like that good is obviously you can only entertain the people that show up. But if you can do that, that's a success.
Yeah.
You can say, you know, there was only so many people, but they enjoyed themselves. This time around I thought, okay, we've done it right, well, we've got the right time of year, and people are saying, it's rebellion time, so there's going to be nobody coming. And it's like, why can I not get a break?
Again.
You know, and at the end of the day, we've done five gigs. I think it's some of them have been good, some of them have been few people, but it doesn't matter. If you still have people at the end saying, we really enjoyed that, or would people come up in London and say, you know, we saw Stiff Little Fingers a couple of weeks ago, and we really enjoyed it, but this was better. And that's not for me to say, well, I'm bad on Stiff Little Fingers or blah blah, but it's nice to hear.
One of the biggest differences I find that I look on YouTube and some of the footage to them, there's a lot more personality in your act now than the Stiff Little Fingers ever was or still is today. It's a very stand up and do it sort of situation.
It became that, yes. It definitely did become that. And the way I thought of doing this was, look, I want to play the songs with, and still enjoy and mean what they're saying things, but not be 100% serious. I don't want to go out there.
On your face.
I don't want to go out there and go, here's one from the Thing album and plouse through it. You know, I don't want to be on the Jules Holland show and pretend I'm some serious musician. You know?
Here's one that really pisses me off.
And it's like, no, we'll go out. First tour I did was totally solo. Then Gordy, the drummer, came with me, and we did it, guitar and drums, and that's the way it stayed. And to be honest with you, it's great.
And you're having a good time.
Oh yeah, you're playing songs that came out over 30 years ago.
Yeah, it's
and people still
4 decades ago.
It's a long time. And the fact that people still want to hear it, and the fact that they're coming to see me doing it and saying, we really enjoy that. Comparisons aside, because comparisons are very personal. But anybody that comes at the end says, we really enjoy that, you go away thinking, great. Should there be 700 or 7 people, if they enjoy it, that's it. And it doesn't feel the way it felt in the late 80s, early 90s with Stiff Little Fingers. It wasn't. I don't feel that it's almost like I'm pretending. I think then we're pretending to be Stiff Little Fingers. We're using the name because it is a name.
Do you find that the Stiff Little Fingers tag is sort of helpful or an hindrance?
No, it's helpful. It really is, because at the end of the day, people will, even some papers and things will say, Henry's out doing this again, and he's every right to do it because he was a big part of that band. One of the reasons why I was reluctant a couple of years ago was because I thought, but I'm not Stiff Little Fingers, and blah blah blah. But the way I looked at it, and this is where it gets controversial, nor are they.
No, I mean, in all honesty, the Stiff Little Fingers, the band, disappeared a long time ago. I mean, they're going to, what bugs me about it is, they're going to South America, I think, next month. Their guitar player's not there, Ollie McMorty's not there, they got the drummer, it's Jake and 3 other guys, and I thought, you're going to sell tickets to people and call yourself Stiff Little Fingers. I could never do that. Could never do it.
And at the end of the day, I think that reflects badly on the name.
I do myself, I mean, Stiff Little Fingers aren't the only band that does that.
No,
you know?
Of course not.
And 9 times out of 10, you go and see some of these bands, and there's one guy in the band, usually the lead singer carrying it on, you know.
It does. I mean, I understand that, and I can see, but to try to claim it's anything but a money-making exercise is nonsense.
Well, it's a career, isn't it?
Of course
That's how it seems to me as an outsider when I look at Stiff Little Fingers.
Well,
now.
and you look at all these bands that are playing this sort of circuit that we're talking about. You know, the UK subs, blah blah blah. The UK subs, Charlie Harper and 3 other guys, probably half his age.
Yeah.
But you know, he's obviously playing on the fact that it's the UK subs name, and if people enjoy it, the one thing I always want to get through, if people go to see the band called themselves, I always call them the band called themselves, Stiff Little Fingers, the artist formerly known as.
Yeah.
And go and see it and enjoy themselves. Great, great. I have no problem with that. But we had a book come out called Kicking Up a Record. Right? It was Kicking Up a Record. And goes into everything. And in the intro, we all did an intro piece, and Ed said, look, go and see the band now, but just remember, I wish you had seen it when it was a real thing.
It's funny that you mentioned UK subs, because I think out of all the bands, UK subs are the only ones who's pulled it off.
They're really good.
Yeah, and they've still got, the guy's how old?
26,
You know, I mean, he was an old man when I was first, you know, but the energy that the guy's got and the band, but I think the biggest keys to their success is that they're in the crowd with the people.
Oh yeah.
No separate. Whereas Stiff Little Fingers, I've always found, even though you used to do the after show thing, you know,
It's still separate.
It's an us and you sort of situation. I've talked to people in like 999, UK subs, etc., and they've mentioned when you've done shows and you've always been sort of separate from the punk band, you know, and it rubs off, you know, and I think that's where the UK subs have been particularly successful.
I did a gig on the solo tour in December, did a gig with them up in Gateshead. Great fun.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think, to be honest with you, Charlie doesn't take it seriously.
No.
I mean, he's out there doing his stuff, but I mean, he knows he's 67 and he's still doing his punk stuff. And you can tell he's enjoying it.
And he'll play to 3 or 3,000.
Of course he will. Of course he will. We played in London, and like I said, really small crowd of people, but they said that UK subs were like the week before, and they played, was it 5?
Yeah. But that's often, you know,
5 people, 5 people.
Yeah. So what's sort of your plans now?
Well, once this one ends, next time I go out on tour, I'm going to make sure there's no snow and no rain.
Yeah.
I want to obviously keep doing this. I've an album recorded which is on iTunes.
Okay.
But what I found was people kept asking me for the CD, and I was like, I deliberately didn't make a CD.
Yeah.
Now people are saying, where's the CD? So I want to. Next time I come back, I want to talk to the right people, do it at the right time, because one of the other problems we have had is people will come up to us, like you did earlier, and they'll say something like, oh, there's a club round the corner which would have been perfect, everybody goes there. We're like 100 yards away playing to like nobody.
So this is literally finding your feet again.
Oh, of course it is. I mean, it's starting off from the beginning. And Stiff Little Fingers used to play to 3 people.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you get a crowd, great, that's a bonus. If you don't, it doesn't matter. Because one of the problems that we've had on the 2 tours is people come up to me and say, we didn't know what you were doing. And then people would say, we thought it was acoustic, and thought, it's not going to work. But it's not. And that's my fault in letting people know what you're doing. Letting people know what you're doing. You need to let people know you're out there, you need to let people know what you're doing, and you need to play the right places. At the end of the day, you know, you get booked into places that you think, okay, the guy, the agent, this is great for this, great for this, great for that. and you realise, yeah, it's okay. But there's another place
just
that local people know is 10 times better. And you've got to find that out, like you say, you can only find that out by going around it.
Doing it, yeah, which is what you're doing now.
Yep, and everywhere we've been this tour, people say it's really good, but you should have played in, you know, Billy Joe Ray Bob's, and it's like, well, I never heard of it.
Yeah.
So,
and it's no good telling us today. It should have been yesterday you told me that.
Exactly. or last year.
Yeah.
But I mean, at least we know next time is to say, okay, let's look at the places. This wasn't great, but people had said, play here, play here, play here, play here. And we've had people say, there's a great place to play, and we wanted to get you there, but it's only a pub. And I'd say, what does that mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it's only a pub. Well, is it better to play to 5 people in a bigger place?
Yeah.
I don't care. Because with the gig we did at the UK Subs was a pub, and it was unbelievable. Stuff to the walls, and I mean, the love that we were doing and everything. And that's what you want. And that's what I want. I don't care where to play, you know, as long as it's good fun and people are enjoying it.
Yeah. That's
that.
Yeah.
It is all that matters.
So you'll do this, finish this tour off. That's got four nights left.
4 nights in this part. There's just in 2 sections. 4 nights, then we've got like 9 days home in Belfast. Then we do Belfast and 3 nights in Scotland, and that's the end of it. Yeah, it's been really fun.
I would imagine Belfast is still.
Belfast is fun as long as you don't do it when there's a football match on.
Well, I've been Belfast. It was short. It's a strange city. Yeah.
It's you know, I don't even know what day it's on. So
it's Wednesday.
Yeah, midweek.
I mean, like anything, the other thing you find out, of course, is that it's hard for people to fill places up midweek. I mean, last week we were in places and they'd say to me, why didn't you play on Saturday? Because you can't afford just to fly over and play one gig and go back for the next week.
Yeah.
But we've been thinking of plans for that, you know, I go stay at home in Belfast for 6 weeks and just come over and do weekend gigs because that's what people want you to do.
Yeah.
You know, and I can't blame the people that own the places, they've got to make money, and you're saying to them, can you pay this on a Tuesday night? And nobody wants to come out.
A place that I was very impressed with last year over in Wigan, they wouldn't bust for the same reason, because nobody's got a shoot out there in the middle of the week.
No.
People's just not got the money now.
It's not the way it used to be.
No,
really isn't. I mean, you used to be able to do a tour, you'd play every night of the week, you'd guarantee crowds.
Even big bands.
No, not a chance.
I stuck for it.
Because people are paying maybe 1 night of the week to go out.
Yeah, you're picking your one night to go out.
Exactly, you know you're spot on.
Yeah. You know.
And if it doesn't happen to be you, well, that's just tough.
Do you not fancy the festival route?
I'd love to do that next year. We were supposed to be on Rebellion this year, but let's just say things got messed up and whatever. So, want to get on for Rebellion next year, and also there's a guy coming, does a thing called Punk by the Sea.
Okay, yeah. Blackpool, is that?
It's not
There's one in Blackpool and one Scarborough. Where?
Scarborough, Brighton. He was at what gig?
Scarborough and Brighton. That's like.
I know, but it is a seaside.
Yeah.
Well, he does that. So what we're looking at is doing it where things like that are great, because not only is it like a guaranteed thing, but people get to see you. You get the exposure.
Yeah. And a good cross section too.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, you're not having to try and say to people, we play this sort of music and we do this, because it's there. And as the Damn tour proved to me, people will enjoy it. So we want to do that. That's next year, and I mean, Rebellion must be great. I've never been. I'd love to play there.
I've looked at Rebellion a few times, and I will be honest about Rebellion. I've looked at it and I've looked at the price.
Oh,
you see, and I've always thought there's 2 bands that I like there, and I'm not paying £100 to see them.
Yeah,
it's a lot of money for what it is.
Plus then your accommodation.
Yeah, because it's not held where you can go camping. So,
oh, okay.
It's all guest houses.
Yeah, and I've never been.
Yeah.
You know, but, and that's the reason why.
It's a lot of money, like you said. If
you look at
like
200 quid
now,
easily 200 quid per head.
Yeah.
You know,
for to see a few bands that you like.
But it is a very, very popular thing.
Oh yeah.
You know, a lot of people are asking me why aren't you there? Sort of thing. You know, you should be filming that or whatever. And the reason is £100, £200 to see 2 bands.
Which is a pretty good reason.
Not happening.
really good reason to say, you know,
Yeah.
I'm not going. But yeah, I mean, I want to do that and get back and do, like say, the festival stuff, because that's a good thing to tie it around, rather than say to people, look,
Yeah.
can you get us somewhere to play on Wednesday night?
Mm-hmm.
And you can't expect people to come bouncing up, yeah, I want you here on Wednesday.
Mhm.
Fair enough, York here, Wednesday night. Who knows what it'll be like, but so what, it's a gig on a
And that's
Wednesday.
right, yeah.
And fair play to people for doing it, but if I owned a place like this, I don't think I would do it.
No, no. But, like you say, see what the night's like, and it could be the best night of the week.
Who knows?
We're in York, it's a strange place.
Who knows?
The other thing with it is as well is, you know, the people who own the venues don't want us playing to, you know, 7 or 10 people either. Do you know
That's
what I
true
mean?
enough, of course it is, yeah.
So
yeah.
I suppose like the only thing you can hope for is people making an effort. And as Henry said, anytime we play, we certainly make the effort to make
Yeah.
sure that, you know, it's as good as we can put on. Plus it is, you know, I suppose at the end of it all, the reaction that we've got, not only in the last tour but in this one, is really encouraging.
Yeah.
You know, it would be worse if people were coming up and going, listen,
And
I
you
didn't know what
shout.
they,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
you
that
know,
would be.
I didn't know what they expect, but it was shite. You
Yeah.
know, the reaction is absolutely brilliant. And again, you know, there's been gigs that we've done on this tour where maybe 5 or 6 more people in would have just made it, you know, look like you know. But as I say, we're happy enough to continue on with it because it can only get it's can only get bigger, you know.
Gordy said it, the thing that keeps me with it is that people do say this is really good.
Mhm.
If I thought it was just below par and just taking money off people,
Yeah.
I would know I would feel that, but I don't. And people don't come up at the end saying, what are you doing?
Yeah.
People are saying this is really good.
Well, the stuff that
really
I'm reading
enjoyed
about it is that, you know, good night had by all,
Exactly.
attitude, top night out.
That's what you need.
brought back a few memories. You
Yeah.
know, I've not read anything where went to see a load of fucking
Yeah,
rubbish,
no.
don't bother.
No.
You know.
So you haven't seen me do this yet?
No, not yet. We'll do it.
Okay, well, maybe we better stop there.
Just before we bring it to a close, as you are aware, the magazine's called Fuck X Factor.
Yes.
What's your opinion of X Factor? And
I have never seen it.
good man.
Deliberately
Good man.
so. It's now I'm living in America. You see, it's opening in America. I want to say August. Simon Cowell's opening the American version of it. You know, I don't know. I can see two sides of it. In that, okay, it gives people a chance to blah blah blah. But when it comes to the music side of it,
Mhm.
I've never seen anything so manufactured.
And controlled.
It's all like here. Even if you have talent, you come on exactly controlled. They're like, okay, this guy's good, and all they do, of course, then is manufacture him into him and her into what they want,
Yeah.
and put them in the middle.
One of the comments that was made on there that stick in my mind is, you sound too much like a rock band. He came on as a rock artist, he was voted on as a rock
He sounds
artist,
like a rock
and what is they're saying to him now 6 weeks in is, yeah, but you're still sounding like a rock band.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that why people voted him on in the first place?
Wouldn't you think so?
You know, I think it's terrible. My own personal opinion is that things like X Factor stops the talent
Of course
from
it
going
does,
anywhere,
of course it does.
because there's so much money and machinery involved in X Factor.
Yep.
You know, and it stops the real talent.
They
from
run
going
the thing.
through.
That's
It's
exactly
very hard to see how like even up and coming bands can get a break
Mhm.
because everything is geared towards, you know, total manufacturing. It's also geared towards like 2 or 3 TV shows.
Well,
Yeah.
when we started with
Yeah.
Little Fingers and we went into record companies, they'd say, and always said this, they'd listen to the album and say, that's really good, but where's your single, right?
Yeah.
Now, it's like, they make the single, they make the video, they make the person,
Yeah. And then ask you
And
what
that's
I
it.
heard you was in.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like who cares about whether it's any, I don't know what the word is, whether it means anything, whether it stands anything, and it's so disposable. I mean, and I personally think there's nothing wrong with disposable pop music,
No.
but when it's manufactured and shoved like that, it's
Yeah.
like, no, that's enough.
And the other thing I thought I'd mention was Trouble in Ireland seems to be coming back.
That's a
round.
whole different thing. I mean, it's one of those things where unless you're from there. I mean, people like in America, they'll say, no, isn't it great that it's all over and things? And you say to them, who told you this?
Yeah.
Who told you that?
Yeah.
I mean, okay, they're not blowing buildings up or shooting people, but it's not over. It's not. I don't think it ever will be. There's no way it's going to be over. And you'll get this whole, we need to forget the past and we need to forget this. And what bugs me is, yeah, we need to forget the past, and then some organisation will say, we need an inquiry into this.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're picking which ones you want to forget. And it's hard, you know, we want an inquiry into this, but we want an inquiry into that. And it's like, where's forget the past? And again, no matter what side it is, a lot of it's understandable.
Yeah.
You can say, forget the past, yes, but I want to find out why my brother was blown up.
Yeah, I mean, the history of Ireland is not a button.
I suppose the job that I do back home is I actually work with quite a lot of those groups.
Okay.
So I do.
He's not a terrorist.
No.
You work for them.
Not this week. Not this week.
Not even a reform terrorist. But the difficulty that I have is, you know, people are looking for justice, but 9 times out of 10, what they really mean is justice.
Yeah.
And the difficulty I have with that is that whenever all the inquiries are done, if people don't like what they hear, then it's all wrong, you know. And I do believe that in order to move forward, people have to deal with the past. You can't you can't look forward without dealing with it. But it has to be dealt with in a sensitive way. It has to be dealt with in a realistic way, and it has to be dealt with in a truthful way too. You know, there's a lot of people who have had to stomach quite a lot of things with the government that we have in place, and you know, bits and pieces like that. Now, the difficulty that there seems to be is because there's nothing for young people coming through the various working class estates, right?
Yeah.
And I would be working with quite a lot of people who are working with young people, and these would be people who would be ex-paramilitaries from both sides, who are finding it incredibly difficult to try and keep a lid on the whole dissident movement. So you have the whole like dissident Republicans coming up, and you have young people, 16, 17-year-olds, especially from like the working class nationalist areas, going, hang on a minute, it's okay for you to go out and petrol bomb and rat with the Brits, you know, and now you're telling us that we have to be friends with them. What's all that about? When you've still got murals on the wall depicting, you know, so-called Irish freedom fighters and heroes and stuff on both sides. And I suppose what you seen happening in East Belfast was like a mirror image of that, where you had the young Protestant working class uprising, if you like, against the sort of security forces. And the thing about it is it doesn't matter how much money you pump into those areas, because it's not about really physical barriers, it's about mental barriers that people have, and it's about making sure that people know where they come from and have an understanding of the past before they can move forward. And I think, things have got better, but there's still a hell of a long way to go.
Yeah.
We will now end with a song.
Yes.
Excellent. Nice woman. Nice one.
We gotta get back to the hotel quickly.